Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds, where we give our completely 100% biased and unprofessional opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and the past. My name is Matt, and across from me, as always, are my two fellow film Freudians, Tyler and Mark. And today we're talking about Night of the Hunter. Mark?
So this was my choice.
Yes.
This is a film that came out in 1955, and the plot is about a psychopath preacher who has found out that two children who just recently lost their father have come to the hands of a small fortune. And so this preacher is not going to stop until he gets his hands on that money. And 65 years later, here we are discussing the movie. So,
Yes. Do you want to give any background as to how the movie was received in 1955?
Yeah, it's interesting.
You guys don't want to talk about it first?
I feel like it'd be cool to, so basically this movie what other movie? It's basically like The Thing and Blade Runner are the two that come to mind. How it was critically and commercially maligned.
Yeah, critically and commercially a failure.
Yeah.
When it came out.
Mark, this is the only guy. He's the only Charles Lawton. This is the only movie he's ever directed. Yeah. Was he an actor? I was trying to look up some stuff.
Yeah, he was actually a really big actor in the 30s. He was a sort of a character actor. He played Quasimodo in the 39 Hunchback of Notre Dame. And then he played Henry VIII in a movie about Henry VIII. I can't remember the title.
Probably Henry VIII.
He played I can't remember the names of the characters. He
played Henry VIII in Suspiria.
Yeah, he was an excellent actor, and I think he was the director of an acting troupe that went around the country. And so I think in around 1953, this novel comes out, The Night of the Hunter, and a man in Hollywood, I can't remember his name. I remember some other names regarding the film, but
we had days to prepare.
This guy bought the rights to the book to adapt it, and he decided that Charles Lawton was the guy to do this because it dealt with a lot of themes and ideas that Charles was very good at expressing, and so he's selected as the director. He takes it. And yeah, he directed one of the best films of the 50s of all American cinema, and it wasn't appreciated until many years after his death. It came out, and the company who distributed it had no idea how to market it. You know, you have Robert Mitchum, which was a big actor, and he wasn't known to play roles such as a psychopath preacher as he did in this movie. So they were trying to use him as the star power, but they wanted to market him to people who sort of knew him from his other roles as this macho sort of fella. And the studio was also marketing another Robert Mitchum film at the same time. And so they were putting more money into marketing that as opposed to The Night of the Hunter. So it comes out, and it does not receive good reviews, and not a lot of people go see it. And basically, 7 years later, in 1962, Charles Lawton dies thinking that his one film that he directed was a complete and utter failure, and he just totally missed the mark. And then I think in the 70s, it started playing on television sets, like at night, and a lot of children saw it. And obviously, there's these children are being chased throughout the film, and it's horrifying to see this as a child. So it started to pick up traction, and then some newspapers started writing articles on it, and then more people started seeing it, and there was this small cult, and then all of a sudden people started to see it for the greatness that it was. And in 1993, it was archived in the National Film Registry, I think, as being deemed culturally significant.
It's the Library of Congress, yeah.
Library of Congress, yeah, that's it. And here's just for me, this is one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love this movie, and I'm very excited to hear what you guys think.
Well, I read Roger Ebert's review, and I feel like Roger Ebert is always a good guy to go off because he's probably the most famous movie critic ever and ever will be. I don't think anyone's ever.
He's the critic.
He's the critic. He praises this as one of the greatest pieces of American cinema, one of the most horrifying movies ever made, and technically incredible. And I want to agree with him on the technical elements. I think this movie, technically, from an artistic standpoint, is spectacular. I mean, I really like odd movies, odd choices in directing, and the weird mix of kind of standard sets, regular shots, and kind of like forced perspectives and the use of cameras to capture perspective and camera angle. It's all incredible. But I don't think it's one of the greatest pieces of American cinema, mainly because I think it has faults narratively more than anything else. And they're not giant faults, but I think it's probably more personal preference as to what the movie presented. I think narratively there's issues.
Do you want to get into that now? Or Matt, do you want to go?
So I also read Roger Ebert's review, and all I have to say is that he's definitely looking at this movie with rose-colored glasses. I don't think it's a 5-star movie. I can appreciate it for, I know, like, apparently it like the shot of him in the basement looking down is like a really iconic shot and inspired horror filmmaking for years to come. But it also probably inspired characters making stupid decisions in horror movies from years to come. Because again, with the scripts, there are quite a few problems with it, and it can't really, it strikes this tone where it's supposed to, it doesn't get to as edgy as I think it should be. It's kind of like a kid's movie that occasionally gets a little bit darker, and I think that from both like a character decision standpoint and from a thematic and standpoint, the movie has a lot of problems, and it kept me from really getting into it.
I completely agree, and I think that's because there's a weird genre mix in this movie where it's the kind of coming of age, boyish adventure similar to like Huckleberry Finn. A lot of the second act of the movie is more Huckleberry Finn, and then it's serial killer thriller. And I think those elements mix when the characters are together, but I do not think they mix well when the characters are apart. And that's where I think I have narrative issues with it. I think the second half of this movie is far less interesting than the first and the third, and really drags the movie down. Mainly just because I think the stuff with Robert Mitchum and the kids, Robert Mitchum plays Harry Powell, the serial killer. I think that stuff's lovely. I really like that mixture and those kind of elements. But then the kids, I feel like we can talk about spoilers in this movie. It's 1955.
Let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
No one's clicking on this movie for a non-spoiler review.
Yeah.
The kids escape and they run away, and there's about 20 minutes where they're on a Huckleberry Finn adventure sailing down the river. And I think that's when I start to not like the movie as much. Mark, you praise this movie. I mean, I think there's really engaging stuff with exploring that element of the movie takes place in the 1920s, 1930s. They talk about
it's
the
like
recession.
the Great Depression, yeah.
And I think
in Ohio,
yeah. And I think exploring that through the perspective of a young boy, John, and how this kind of otherworldly, unstoppable entity in Harry Powell comes, and how they has to accomplish that, and you mix that with that coming of age, those adventure stories like Huckleberry Finn. I think Huckleberry Finn's a really great example of something that works here. And you mix the two, and I think it works lovely. But then it separates, and it's just not as interesting as what was presented before. It actually kind of grinds the movie to a little bit of a halt when it's still well directed, but it's just like 20 minutes of them sailing down a boat.
Yeah, I mean, the sequence of them on the boat is probably one of my favorites of the movie. What I specifically like about that river passage, I guess, is obviously the biblical tones, I guess, Moses going down the river.
It's also rabbits for Easter.
Wow.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah. I guess I need to
by me.
Nothing gets by.
I hate you, Matt. Well, let's cut to the rabbits. I love the use of the way animals during the scene. It makes it creepy in such a weird way. You got there's no sense of perspective really when you have like the rabbit and the toad on the screen, or like the cobweb. It's this is a great quote that some film critic had said. It's like, these kids are not part of this world; they're just in it. I guess I'm butchering the quote, but do you get what I'm saying? They're out of their element.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's very
still,
imposing. And what else I wanted to touch on, and I want to see if this bothered you guys. What are your thoughts on the set pieces?
I mean, I feel like you're making an allusion to the car and the woman underwater.
No. I'm talking about specifically in the river sequence.
In the river. I mean, there's a lot of perspective framing, a lot of uses of kind of sets to hide kind of a lot of stuff, which I think is really well done. I do think this movie's also being praised as one of the scariest movies ever made. Robert
I think it's scary. I think it's very scary.
I think I lean more towards Matt on this, where it's not as scary as I think people think it is. But I do think
it all boils down to the fact that the minister is so incompetent. Like, he's just terrible. Like, he can't, like, he's either like when coming with dealing with the kids, like you feel like he could just get the information about where the money is whenever he wants to, but like he's just so stupid that he doesn't. And he's like, the script occasionally makes him like this like really devious killer, like when he murders the wife. Well, when he first gets into the family and like seamlessly inserts himself into the family, and then just coldly kills the wife when it's convenient for him. But at the same time, he can't get these two stupid kids to tell him where the money is. And then every time he gets the opportunity to kill him or torture him, he does. It's like a Three Stooges skit as to how they like, and like with a comedy of error sort of event of how he gets away. So the problem with it not being scary is, like, I think the shots could be scary if the villain himself was actually a threat, which I never really viewed him as being a threat.
Well, I think you're applying too much logic to the movie. You're looking at it through too much of an objective view. He's the preacher. I mean, you know this. You mentioned it. He's like the personification of evil. He's like playing the idea of something, and you're also looking through this movie is like through the lens of a child. So it's sort of going to be slapstick, I guess, and they're treating evil with the vindication that it deserves. Like, that's what Charles Laughton is trying to do. And so, in those moments where he's like, go up the stairs like this, and it's like he's kind of slow and he slips on like the soup can,
Yeah.
It doesn't take away from the scene for me. It's still super scary. It's just, that part does not bother me at all. I think if you just disregard, like, the logic of the scene, like, obviously he could be like trying to stab them and they'd give him the money.
Well, I think an issue is the movie, and again, I feel like we should always frame this. We're viewing this. It was 40 years before we were born when this movie came out. But I think the issue is you can have a movie from a child's perspective and still have the movie kind of, then the horror elements have to play to the child's perspective. But we often get back and forth of kind of real life horror. So when you have a horror villain who can very competently kill and dispose of the wife, then when he proceeds to then not kill the small children easily, it kind of throws that child's perspective and real life mix into kind of a conundrum where in one scene he's a devious killer who can easily take care of the situation, but then it switches to the child's perspective film, and a lot of that is done through kind of camera uses. Oftentimes when John is talking to Harry, when Harry's talking, it's framed downwards. When John's talking, it's framed upwards. Little tricks like that kind of throw it back to the kid's perspective, but we were just shown the kind of the actual horror of it. And I feel like, although it's well done and ambitious, I feel like there's not a perfect blend of it, like people may think there is. At least that's just for me.
I mean, yeah, he's not going to they're also going to take into account that it's a movie coming out in the 1950s, and they're not going to put violence against children on screen.
Yeah.
But you have to let it be known that the preacher is, if given the chance, he's going to severely hurt or kill someone. So it's the reminder of the threat, but the children are still going to be able to get away. It's still the idea of what can happen.
I wanted to see because it's the first third of the movie that is that where it's really engaging, and then they run away, and then you have one really great scene which I did really love is when they're in the barn, and it's an excellent use of shadows when he's singing the song, and you just see the shadow of his horse kind of on the horizon. Lovely shot, and the
Yeah,
kids
it's a
are
good
like,
shot.
"Oh, does he never sleep?" Perfect element of horror right there because we have just witnessed 15 minutes of these kids sailing down a river and they cannot get away from him. Excellent. Then there's the great sequence at the end when it's the duet when him and the new foster mother are singing together and then he disappears. Wonderful. Love those elements. But then you also have times when it's that child adventure mixed in between that, and I wanted to focus more on the thriller element because I think that's where it's a more engaging movie.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair.
yeah, and it's also not a discredit to the characters. I just think they presented something that's far more engaging. I mean,
Mhm.
whether that's due to the kind of like great uses of shadows and camera tricks to make Harry Powell a more imposing character, the performance. It's just there's a far less engaging movie in here that they focused on too much, I think.
I want to start by saying like I was totally on board with this movie when it first started because there's like that great scene where he's like watching like the girl dance at the show and he's just so disturbed by it and like
Yep.
you're like I was sort of thinking like, oh, this is gonna be like a crazy psychological drama. And then also like I don't understand if he's a psychopath, like why does he care about money so much? I thought like it'd be something. I kind of thought his goal would be more sinister than just I want money, because I thought like there's something like the psychological issues, as in like he sees like this perfect family or whatever and needs to feel like he needs to destroy it. It felt like his desire for money felt really out of place for me.
There's a
Mhm.
definite like inspiration. There's a really bad movie that came out in 2009 that I saw in theaters, which I thought had Patrick Wilson in it, but it started like the evil stepfather trope, which it's really cool to see where a lot of inspiration for movies has. I also found out this 2009 terrible horror movie is a remake of a much better 1987 horror movie. But that like evil stepfather comes
What's the
in.
movie called?
It's called The Stepfather.
Oh,
And it stars like Amber Heard. It's
oh,
terrible. I saw it in theater. It has an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. Just throwing that out there. I saw it in theaters and thought it was awesome in 2009. Um, but those kind of movies is where it took clear inspiration. Is they focused more on the infiltration of the house and the eradication of the family, because you do get little hints of that. You're right. I do wish they touched more on the sinister, sadistic side, because that mentions it, and he's clearly gonna kill her, or he's like venting frustration with the knife, and then you get a little bit with the wife, and then his sadism and dislike towards lust is completely gone. It kind of falls into the kids. It falls away because of the kid element of the story. But you agree? I wish that would have been far more interesting. I think.
yeah. We're just saying like he could be such a complex villain, like a sort of like a Buffalo Bill or kind of character.
Mhm.
But then it just boils down to he just wants money because he's evil. And I guess
I
it
mean,
kind of
he's.
works because like if it's a kids movie, then it works and it's fine. But it's also trying to
Mhm.
be like a disturbing psychological movie, and it doesn't work there.
But yeah, I mean, he does want the money. I don't know if it's exactly out of place because he believes he's like on some sort of divine conquest, I guess. He's so like affirmed in what he's doing.
Like,
Um,
what is this divine conquest?
really, it boils down to he murders widows and takes their money. That's basically what he does, and that's like what he believes is right. As evident in the bedroom scene on the honeymoon.
But the bedroom scene is a more kind of extension of his dislike of lust and sexual elements. There's never a hint that he kills widows. I thought he just. It's
Well,
like
you have to. It's what it's.
And then when he kills the
It's
widow, why
not.
does he need to kill the kids after? Like, why can't he just take them? Why can't he just do that and then leave, or take the money and leave? Well, he doesn't know
Well,
what the money is. That's right.
yeah.
But
yeah,
like,
yeah. You wouldn't know
why
what the
can't he
money
just kill the
is.
widow and leave if that's just what he wants?
Well, then, the money is his enabler because he stole a car at the beginning of the film. He's just
Yeah.
sort of
That's a
walking
good
around
point.
with his 3-piece suit and a switchblade,
Yeah, that's a good point.
and his charisma, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think he's like one of cinema's best villains, in my opinion. Like, do you want to get into Hallmark moments? Because
Go
I
for
have
it. What's
I
some of
have
your
a
favorite
bunch.
moments? Go for it. Hallmark
Well,
moments. Our favorite moments of the movie. Go.
yeah. Well, the first time I watched this, before I knew any of the praise this got, the scene where my jaw dropped was the barnyard scene where you see him on the horizon.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the scene in the movie.
That is scary. That scared me. I was just jaw hit the floor. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, whatever this is, I am so into it. I love that, and I love the love-hate speach.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a good
He's doing
scene.
that.
Yeah.
Which Spike Lee took clear inspiration from for Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, you can read up more on that, and when you get the Criterion,
Yeah,
Do the Right Thing. He talks about that.
He does. Okay, that was like he showed the love and hate, and I'm like, okay, that was. I
That's
just
where it
watched
got-
Do the
that's where
Right
it came
Thing.
from.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Yeah. I loved the scene, specifically the shot where the farm woman is sitting in the chair with the shotgun, and the camera's like off, sort of facing her, and it's just her silhouette, and you can see the wall is lit up.
Yep.
It's like it looks like some sort of Southern Gothic painting. I mean, this whole thing is a Southern Gothic painting, I guess.
Yeah.
I love that, and then it transitions out into the yard, and you see Harry Powell on the stump, and he's just singing his song. I love that. I loved the shot of the car under the water. I mean, what a feat
Do you know how they
for
accomplished that?
1955.
Do you know how was that a dummy? Was that a real person? They said, hold your breath for a minute. How did they accomplish that shot? Do you have any idea?
I went through all the extras on the Criterion disc, and I did a lot of research. I could not find out specifically what they did for that scene. I assume it was a doll or like a, yeah.
Because that's like a genuinely. I feel like there are.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, there are a few
Whoa.
moments of legitimate, well done, crafted horror. I think that one, because you get hints of the wife's murder, clearly. And then you're kind of, you hear the car and you're left like, he dumped the body, but then you get the realization he dumped the car and the body's tied up.
Mm-hmm.
So she probably, it also gives the hint like, oh, she probably was not only stabbed, she probably didn't die by stabbing, she died by drowning. At least that's what kind of I got. Yeah, there are a few like legitimately great scenes. I think there's one in the boat sequence, which I am dogging on this movie a lot. I do want to say that I do like this movie. And I do respect how ambitious it is. I do like when they're riding on the boat and it's the framing of the spider web over the kids. I thought was great. The riding on the horizon scene was great. And yeah, I think the shot underwater is probably really great too. One of my favorites.
Another moment that I loved is when John and Pearl are like about to go to sleep, and Pearl's like, "Tell me a story, John," or something like that.
Yep.
You know, that scene, and he gets up and he's like, basically giving an allegory to like what's happening to them.
Yep.
Currently, and then you see the shadow of the preacher on the wall.
Yep.
And then John looks out the window and you see like preacher against the fence just staring up at him. And I think in this shot, in this scene, it really, the way that the sets look so fake on purpose really helps the story, because when he's out there in the yard against the fence, looking up into the window, it's like it's outside, but it's claustrophobic. Where's he going to go? It's because it's just fake backdrop.
Yeah.
And he's just right there. He's so imposing. I just
Also
think
make the movie feel kind of like unnatural too. Like
yeah.
like very disturbing element of isolation, like what you said, but also like that you're not in like the real world, that you're kind of stuck in this fairy tale.
Yeah,
sort
dream
of,
state.
Yeah.
This movie pulls a lot from the early German expressionism movement, I guess, where like 1920s you get like Metropolis and Nosferatu, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Like that famous shot of like Nosferatu going up the stairs like this, and you see his shadow on the wall, like stuff like that. Like Lawton drew a lot of inspiration from those movies. He also drew a lot of inspiration from D.W. Griffith, who did The Birth of a Nation. That was one of his most famous works, as well as some other, films that came out right before 1920. And one specific technique that he took from D.W. Griffith is after the morning after the mom disappears, and it's preacher against the tree in the yard, and he's singing, and he's like,
Lovely
"Children."
voice, by the way. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's
Lovely
like, "Children,"
voice.
and then the iris closes, and you can see the kids in the window.
Yep.
that's a technique taken right from D.W. Griffith. That was a
Okay.
silent film technique.
No, it's definitely like technically it's phenomenal. Technically, it's one of a kind.
Mm.
It's really like it's phenomenal. The use of shadows is wonderful. I really dug it technically, and I feel like there's always that. Like again, my issues with the movie are narratively, not technically, because technically
Yeah.
this movie like it does stuff, and you're like, oh my god, that's really cool. Um, a lot of shots of like starry nights that look really great. They're probably just like the cutout painting you put in front, or you poke
Yeah.
holes on a black screen in front of the camera. That looked really well and put that there. I really wish we would have gotten more of Harry Powell though, because he does disappear as this kind of this entity traveling across. I wish we got more of him. I really do. He's a very compelling person. I feel like more time with him would have fleshed him out. See him in more situations, flesh out his history, flesh out who he is, instead of this kind of evil entity, the embodiment of evil, like you said.
Yeah, Matt, go.
I was like, I'm talking about my favorite scene, but Mark, if you're talking about something that Tyler just said, you can go.
I'll add on to this, and then you'll go. I disagree with that. I think less is more. I really think that works. His limited time on screen really works here. The fact that you know so little about him, like the only thing you know is that he is just relentless and he is coming for you, and there's nothing you can really do about it. It really adds to the atmosphere of the story, and I think it makes him such a compelling villain. When he just all of a sudden he shows up. It's like, oh, here we go.
The thing is though, and it's not fair to compare this a 1955 movie. I want to compare it to Silence of the Lambs for a second, because I kept thinking of that, because I think Silence of the Lambs is one of the best examples of how to structure a movie well. You don't get a lot of Hannibal Lecter, but you get enough Hannibal Lecter to see what he's capable of to pose a threat.
I think he's in like five minutes total.
I think it's a little more than that. I think
But
it's
he's like the shortest amount of time for an actor who won an Oscar.
Yes.
To be in a movie.
But you also get that scene in the middle where he escapes jail and he gets his freedom. Spoilers for Silence of the Lambs. I mean, I don't care. But you're given hints of his ideology, who he is, but then it backs it up with kind of an example of his intelligence, his creativity, and how kind of merciless he is. I wish there was an example of that more for for Harry Powell, because we get elements of his kind of menacingness with the kids, and we get a hint of it with the wife. I wish we got a little bit more, just a tiny bit more to kind of add it.
Well, you do at the beginning of the film. The first thing you see is a dead woman in like a stairwell.
Yeah,
that he's killed, and he took that woman's car and then went to that strip club, and he was gonna. I mean, I think it was some sort of strip club, I guess.
It's like a burlesque dancer, yeah.
Burlesque dancer, yeah. And then he's like, he planned on killing that woman, and he engages a switch knife, I guess, and switchblade, and he was going to kill her. I guess that's the implication of what he was going to do. He's willing to kill for whatever he needs, and on his divine conquest. So I think it works. I think the comparison to Hannibal Lecter is very fair. I think it's a good comparison. I just think this works in a different way, and it works well.
Matt, you're the Hannibal Lecter guy. When was Red Dragon written?
I think the 80s.
The 80s? Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of, again, like you mentioned, like a lot of people growing up in the 70s were clearly very inspired by this movie. Mm-hmm. I think Roger Ebert, who we talk about, is clearly, I think rose-colored glasses might be the best word, but maybe it's something not so kind of dismissive, maybe. Mm-hmm. I think it's like that kind of nostalgia for a movie. I do think this movie has faults, but I do have to praise it for a lot of elements. And I do think this is something worth kind of watching.
I would say, I appreciate it for what it was in 1955 and how it helped improve cinema. But measuring from a modern standpoint, it does not hold up for me. It's not even like movies just in that time period didn't hold up for me in general. Like, I just watched L'Avventura a couple months ago, and that was around the same time period, and I loved it. So it's not like I just don't like movies that are that old. I just think this movie, especially it's kind of hard to do a horror movie and keep it relevant for 65 years because what is defined as scary has changed so much since then. But like I said, like I can't give this movie like a glowing recommendation because of what it did for 65 years of cinema. I have to measure it based on modern day standpoints, and from those standpoints, it does not hold up to my standards.
What was your favorite scene, by the way, Matt? You mentioned that, and then we completely
So
forgot about
like,
you.
so it's kind of like a joke, but because like I agree with all your favorite scenes. I think those are all really good scenes. But my favorite scene is when it's like at the end when the old lady is like trying to get him to come out of like the wall or whatever, and then she goes, "Come out or I'll shoot you," and he goes, it's like right in the camera.
Yeah.
What was, did a cat attack him? Because they show a cat run, and you heard like a ah, and then he goes ah, and then jumps up.
Yeah.
What was that? Did he like
I
the
don't know.
cat scratch him? I don't know. That made me laugh. I rewatched that 1 or 2 times. That made me laugh.
Oh, I laughed at that scene for a couple minutes.
I know. I have a hunch as to why you also laughed at, Tyler.
What was it?
Is when they're trying to escape on the boat and he's on the wire and he just starts screaming.
Yeah,
Like,
he just yells up and ah, and I was like,
I knew you were gonna.
I
laugh at that.
audibly like pump my fist when they set up that the jars fall, that they're like loose, and the kid like knocks it, and I instinctually went, I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, and then he goes, and then like hobbles up the stairs, and he trips on a bottle. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Now we know where Walk Among the Tombstones got their inspiration from.
That's right.
This whole time.
This is amazing. Everything comes back to Night of the Hunter. There is I was reading something where someone describes, like an actual like reputable news source describes this as the second best movie of all time behind Citizen Kane.
Whoa.
I think it was
that's
like
a claim.
Life or Variety or something. I was trying to figure out where I read it, and I was like, what? Like that's pretty bold. I think like Empire Magazine has it as 71 out of 500.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I was like, that makes more sense. But it has.
I still disagree with it completely. But
yeah. It has an average score on Rotten Tomatoes out of 10. It's like a 9.02.
That's a 99 Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. Like
it's really like it's amazing how much people love this movie, and that's not a dig at people.
Man, Tyler's firing shots.
I think it just comes down to taste, because on a technical and objective level, I guess you could say that this movie just is unbelievably good. It just comes down to personal taste. For me, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I read the reviews about it and felt completely affirmed, I guess.
Vindicated?
Vindicated. That's the word, yeah.
I got bored, so I looked on Reddit, people's thoughts, and anytime someone mentioned Night of the Hunter, everyone's just like, it's the best thing ever. I was like, okay. So I disagree. I'm
there's this kid called Drunzo on Reddit who like every 5 minutes says like flawless movies. No, the Hunter's flawless. I'm like, wow, what an idiot!
What an idiot! This is so dumb.
It is.
All right. So, what are your final grades for Night of the Hunter, 1955, by Charles Laughton? One of the greatest movies of all time, according to Roger Ebert.
I will be merciful. I'll give it a C.
What?
That's actually a lot lower than I thought you'd go. Whoa, Mark's gonna kill you.
I found this movie to be very boring and tedious, but I appreciate it from a technical standpoint, on the technical level, and just was not working for me.
We're living up to our name as film frauds. I'm gonna give this movie a B. It's a solid. I realized I just gave The Marine and Night of the Hunter the same score, and I'll stand by that. I feel like this movie accomplishes a lot, even for its time period, and viewing it not as a staple of cinema history, but rather just kind of a movie. I think technically it's great, and I do think there are elements narratively that are good, but I think it's lacking. I think if there was just a little bit more, and that might just be because I'm a sadistic, crazy person, but I wish there was a little bit more of the thriller, and we got a little bit more of Harry Powell, and then it would have made it a phenomenal movie for me. But it's a really, really good B.
We made such a mistake, Tyler, in reviewing The Handmaiden and The Wrestler first.
Yeah.
Because everything else is disappointing.
Nothing's as good as The Handmaiden, yeah. All right, Mark. What do you give What did we just watch? Night of the Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me think about that.
Just
I give it an A. It's a masterpiece. Go watch it.
also
That's all I have
apparently,
to say.
I would say it's streaming on Amazon Prime because that's what Mark told me 3 days ago, and then I had to pay $4 to watch it.
He watched it the day it went off Amazon Prime.
I
I'm a
hate
good
you.
friend, I swear.
No, I hate you. I had to pay $4 for this.
Marcus wanted to give the company money. He
Yeah.
wanted to give them,
Oh, okay, yeah. I see.
Amazon's working on a resurrection of Charles Lawton, and Mark.
Yeah.
Yes.
his head's frozen actually next to Walt Disney's.
I've been personally tasked to advertise for the film and for Lawton.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've ruined all our credibility with movies because no one's going to trust us anymore except for Mark, guys, what have you been watching in the last few days since we've last talked?
I watched The Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes. What did you think of it?
I feel the same thing with like life. Well, there's a lot I like.
You're fired.
Well, okay, hold on. I feel like I cannot watch like pre-Fantastic Mr. Fox. I can't watch a Wes Anderson film while I'm slightly tired, because with Darjeeling Limited, Life Aquatic, and Royal Tenenbaums, in those movies or in those moments in the movies that sort of like it's just Wes Anderson firing on all cylinders, I sort of like start dozing off.
4 out of 5 stars.
5.1. No, there's a lot of stuff I really liked. I just wasn't gripped the whole way through as I was expecting a little more. Maybe I was hyped up a little too much, but I still really liked it. I liked Ben Stiller's character a lot, even though I can't remember. I can't remember that Tenenbaum's name. I really like Gene Hackman. He was really good. The only movie I've seen with Gene Hackman is The Conversation, Francis Ford Coppola's 1974 film, which he was also excellent in.
You're a nerd.
You're
a nerd.
Yeah, loser.
Loser.
Watch real movies.
Like
Yeah,
Like Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
So where do you have it on your Wes Anderson kind of area? 'Cause your favorite's Fantastic Mr. Fox, right?
Yeah. I'd probably put it like third behind Grand Budapest. I liked it more than Life Aquatic and Darjeeling Limited. I still haven't seen Moonrise, Isle of Dogs,
You seen
or
Rushmore?
Bottle Rocket. No, I haven't
wow.
seen
Rushmore's
Rushmore.
great.
I think Royal
Rushmore's-
Tenenbaums and Rushmore are my 2 favorite Wes Anderson movies.
Tyler just got the Criterion. He
I
got
did
it
get
for
the
$20.
Criterion. I found it on sale. I really dig Isle of Dogs. Like, more time passes, I want to rewatch that movie. Yeah. All right, Matt, what have you watched finally? Besides Last of Us.
I have movies I watched. It's in both on the same night actually.
Whoa.
So first of all, Last of Us is still good. I'm enjoying it still.
Okay.
All right,
For
thanks
my
for the-
bi-weekly review for Last of Us, I'm still enjoying it. Murders people, getting better at stealth though, so I'm
Nice.
murdering less people. I rewatched The Host, the Bong
Yeah.
Joon-ho movie on
Nice.
Hulu, and it's fantastic. I still really like it.
Yeah.
I think that was the first Jung Boon-ho movie I'd seen, so it's kind of cool rewatching it and like having seen most of his movies except for Barking Dog Never Bites. I kind of see some more like themes and recurring stuff in his movies that I kind of appreciate more. And I watched for the first time a documentary called Free Solo, and
Yes.
Oh my God.
Okay. What did you think? I love.
Hey,
Free
hold on.
Solo.
Hold on. I haven't seen it yet, and I intend on watching it, so don't get too spoilery
How
for me.
sweaty were your hands at a certain point?
I think when he was my most sweaty was when he was still doing like the trial runs,
Yeah.
and like he's trying to do like the karate kick thing, and
Yeah.
then you're just thinking like, oh, he's going to do that without the harness, and
Yep.
like I
Mark
mean,
took off
like,
his
I
headphones,
was
by the way.
planning on doing editing work or something while I had it on. Like I'll just have this on the background, do editing work, whatever. I was glued to that movie.
Oh my! There's like I wish. Okay, that movie is he's such an interesting dude.
Yeah.
But that also probably has we won't spoil it, Mark. But probably has one of the more intense moments I've ever seen in a movie, ever. I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
I wish like the music in the movie was better though.
Yeah.
'Cause
He's such an interesting guy. Like you understand it, but sometimes he says things that are so like cold and detached that you go, oh, well, like it's kind of weird.
Like a lot of stuff. Mark, take your headphones off.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff with his girlfriend, I think, is really like cold.
I feel like his girlfriend has really low self-esteem.
Yeah.
He seems like he's I'm not saying he's a bad person, but yeah, a lot of the stuff he says about her is kind of cold.
Yeah.
And like,
Well, like when he
and
falls.
he just keeps coming back to him too. And he's like, "Oh, I understand. I'm second to
Yeah.
this rock climbing thing. It's okay."
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's like, I don't know. I kind of felt bad. I kind of felt like I feel like he doesn't need her, and
Yeah.
because he just loves rock climbing. I feel like she could do better. She could find someone that
I think they're still together too.
values her more than he does.
I think they're still together. I think they got engaged. All right,
Really?
Mark.
Because
Come
there's that
back. We're
really
good.
wait. I have one more scene to talk about.
Wait, go away. Go away again.
Because there's that one scene where he doesn't tell people when he's doing the free soloing.
Yeah.
And then they're awkwardly walking around at 5 a.m. and he's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I'm gonna go climb." He's like, "Who are you going with? James?" Like, "No, not James." "Oh, Charlie?" "No, not
No.
Charlie." "You going by yourself?" He goes, "Yeah."
Yeah.
He's like, "Going with a harness?" "No."
She's like, what?
This is very, very funny and also really awkward. But yeah. Okay, Mark.
Mark, you're good. Come back. Mark. Okay, he's back.
What happened?
We were talking about Free Solo. Watch Free Solo.
Yeah.
All right. I watched 3 movies. I wanna avoid talking about one in depth, but I watched the first 2 Coen Brothers movies. I watched Blood Simple and Raising Arizona. I own a lot of movies on Blu-ray, and I somehow managed to own 7 or 8 Coen Brothers movies without realizing it. So I was like looking through it. So I watched Blood Simple and I watched Raising Arizona. Blood Simple is phenomenal. It's simple. It's pun intended. But it's lovely. Francis McDormand is amazing. Raising Arizona is weird, and I don't know if I like it. It's tonally.
Not seen either.
It's tonally. Nick Cage is phenomenal. So is Holly Hunter, but it's like tonally and narratively.
Holly Hunter's in it?
Yeah, and she's great. Nick Cage is amazing, but this is like the Coen brothers at their weirdest. Like, they don't know what they're doing with this movie, and there's a lot of like, not spiritual, but fantastical elements of it. One in particular that I just don't really like at the end, but I'd still check it out. It's a really interesting to see them kind of progress, and I'm going to watch Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink. I've seen Barton Fink, love Barton Fink, but I own Miller's Crossing. I haven't seen it. Then I watched Thor Ragnarok. I like Thor Ragnarok, but it also, despite Taika Waititi's really cool style, it still falls into that Marvel movie trend where things just look overly glossy and fake. And I don't, it's really off-putting. Like, there's this weird, like, after Captain America Winter Soldier, things started to look very digital and all CGI and just kind of like they have no depth to it. And it's starting to get more off-putting. Like, I've seen Thor Ragnarok. This is my 3rd time. And it's kind of like too much in the back of my brain. And I think it just kind of looks, despite Taika Waititi's style, visually really gross and uninteresting.
That's funny because I think the ugliest Marvel movie is the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Really?
That movie is just a gray, mucky mess. And I feel
think
like
the ugliest is Avengers. I think that's when it becomes really...
No, Avengers too, but Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is... I like the movie, but it's so gray and ugly. It's weird because, like, I feel like Thor Ragnarok and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 are very digital and they use a lot of heavy green screen.
Yep.
But I don't know. I personally like the art style in both those movies. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 might be my favorite Marvel movie.
Yep.
And
Same.
like,
Guardians
Thor
of the Galaxy
Ragnarok
2, you said?
Guardians of the Galaxy 2, yeah. And then Ragnarok is also pretty high up there. I don't know. It works a little more for me because it's not like on Earth. So I don't know. Like, my head processes it easier. But yeah, I can understand. Like, the Colosseum fight doesn't look real.
No. There's a lot of like, because the place that he's in, the planet Sarda something or whatever. I was thinking of the bad guys from Dune, the Super Army.
Harkonnens?
Not the Harkonnens, the Sardukar or whatever. Sarudikar or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
But that planet that they're on, they have so much potential, but everything just like looks kind of like fake, and it looks overly fake. Too much where you can pinpoint when they're on sets, and then like everything just nothing feels like in a depth of field. Like, I watched that Avengers movie, and that final fight is so like supposed to be so grand, but they're all on this one like set the entire time.
Yeah.
They all come back to that one location. And then you're like, oh, great. But as soon as they expand, it becomes better. And I think Thor and a lot of Marvel movies fall into that. I still like it. I still think it's a solid Marvel movie. More time passes, and I think Iron Man might be my favorite Marvel movie. That and like Winter Soldier. Because Winter Soldier is visually engaging in a different movie. So yeah, that's what one day we might cover Marvel movies. Maybe.
Are you
Probably
saying
not.
Thor is not visually engaging? The first one?
Oh,
Hey,
where
With all the
everything's
duck
like
angles?
this. I was getting
watch your
sick a little
mouth.
bit.
So my
Don't
fun
worry,
of
Matt.
Thor.
Thor: The Dark
Kenneth
World.
Branagh is a genius, and you don't understand.
Thor: The Dark World is the third best Marvel movie. Throw that out there right now.
Wait,
I
what'd you
agree.
say?
Thor: The Dark World,
is the
third best Marvel movie.
Thor: The
I guess
Dark World is the most underrated Marvel movie.
I think so too.
I haven't
I'm
watched
glad
it since.
because I remember. Did I do a podcast like a year ago where I said that?
I think you went on a Thor 2 rant.
We did an episode with like unpopular Marvel opinions, and I
Yeah,
said that
Thor 2, and we
is like an
agreed.
underrated movie, and I'm
And then you
glad.
went off.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
that prison escape scene is such a good
It's
action
fun.
scene.
Thor
Yeah.
2's fun. You heard it here first. We're the Thor 2 podcast now.
That's gonna be our next episode. Why Thor 2 is the best Marvel movie.
Ugh. All right, Mark. Tell us about
Thor
what
2
new
better than
series.
Night of the Hunters? Question mark.
Question mark. Would you give Matt? You gave Night of the Hunter a C. Would you give Thor: The Dark World a B?
Yes, I give it an A.
God. Oh my god.
What?
I like
Wait,
Mark's face
what?
right now. I mean, I gave Night of the Hunters a very generous C. Like, I feel like if I was shooting from the hip,
let's switch the topic so Matt doesn't embarrass himself.
Man, we're losing credibility. We're gonna have to sell out eventually at this rate.
Mark's like, even if you fall asleep, you have to give it a great review, or people won't like you.
The Master is a good movie.
Ugh.
I just wasn't awake for 30 minutes of it.
So it's real Tenenbaums.
I can't remember the characters because I woke up and the credits were rolling.
Yeah.
Like, all right, and then
Spencer came over Ben Stiller's name, so I slept through the whole thing.
I like to think Mark woke up and it was like just at the end of cast credits.
Also, I
like,
want to point out that Mark says he doesn't like Life Aquatics, and he has a Life Aquatics picture.
It's aesthetically
represents him.
pleasing.
No, it's a good picture. I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
I like to think,
I
there's something.
like Steve Zissou.
There's
Yeah.
something narratively really going on in Mark's background. Mark is hiding the Rocky poster, which is this like punching movie, and it's being covered. It's like Mark's shame in the background.
Yeah, don't look at that.
All right, Mark. What are we talking about next? What are we doing for our next series?
We are doing a director's series. Each of us, each week. Yeah, look at Matt. You're excited.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm
So
so
every
excited. I
week.
lost my sense of gravity for a minute.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Anyway, good joke.
Mark's so mad at me.
So each week on this podcast show thing, one of us recommends a movie, and then we all discuss it, and we cycle through. So that's what we're going to be doing now with directors. And we're probably going to do 3 to 4 movies from each director that we choose. And so I'm going first, and I'm choosing Paul Thomas Anderson. And the 3 movies I chose were Boogie Nights.
Only say one.
Boogie Nights.
Okay.
Boogie Nights is the first one.
All right.
Wait.
We don't want to.
Aren't we doing all 3 movies in one episode?
No, we're doing 3 individual episodes. We should probably have talked about this beforehand, but no, we're rolling with it. So our next episode,
we'll do it live.
Is going to be up Sunday or Monday, and it's going to be your Paul Thomas Anderson Boogie Nights. But then we're also going to continue to recommend individual movies, like Night of the Hunter.
So many movies.
So many movies.
2 shows a week.
2 shows a week.
Notifications on.
Yeah, we're doing it. Matt. So that's what we're watching. Matt, we're going to end the episode. What's your call to action?
Oh,
Matt,
subscribe and like, and hashtag us and share our everything.
Share everything.
Comment your favorite film fraud.
Yeah.
We want to start a war.
Tell us what you think. Give us your side on the age-old debate of Thor 2 versus Night of the Hunter.
All right, guys.
It's going to be the one comment, and because he hasn't seen Night of the Hunter, he's going to write Thor 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that will settle this argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
All right. Thank you guys
All right.
for watching. We'll be back Sunday or Monday with Boogie Nights. And then after
Can't
that,
wait.
other bunch of other stuff. All right. Thank you guys. Bye.
See ya.